refocusing our desires on what is permanent, what is eternal, what is divine, away from the limited. Because as long as we hold on to limited, we're going to be limited, right? And when we focus on something that's permanent, then we have the capacity to dissolve into that permanency, whilst at the same time existing in this temporary form. Right?
Wow.
So that's how I understand yoga.
Blessings.
Pranam.
So grateful to have you here on the Yoga Revealed podcast, Lucy. It's been quite some time since we had the opportunity to tune in last, which was in Varanasi, India, where we first had the opportunity to meet when I was actually doing a wonderful Yoga for Change retreat. And we had the opportunity of meeting the children that you have this wonderful place called the Chandramauli Children's Trust, and being able to not only see them, but also to give back to the school and to see the amount of wisdom that you were instilling into these children. And now to be here in, how do you say it? It's Mussoorie? Mussoorie, India, where I have had the opportunity to meet your Guruji and to be blessed with a mantra. And I'm just so blessed and absolutely honored to have the opportunity to get to know you. And I am so excited to share your story with the Yoga Revealed podcast listeners today.
It's such a blessing for us to have you here, you know. It's all just a reflection. You're just a mirror. And it goes both ways. And to be in this space and to be with Guruji, it's all just a divine gift, you know.
Yeah.
And it's something that just through the vibrations of the universe just brings us together again and again and again. I mean, it doesn't feel like however many years, maybe it's like 6-7 years, right?
It feels like time went by like that. Oh my goodness.
It's like, you know, just we saw you like last week.
And since then, I've been sending all my friends, oh, you know, go see Lucy, go see Lucy, go see Lucy. And so I'm so excited to have the opportunity now to be able to be here sitting side by side and to really dive deep into the real practice of yoga, the real practice of sadhana, the real practice of taking the asana, the meditation, the pranayama, and really turning it into how we can actually uplift this world by our actions. And so I want to hear a little bit more about how yoga first found you.
Well, you know, it's a little bit of a long story, but, you know, I remember being like when I was a really little kid, like maybe 4 or 5 years old. And then before that, I was like, used to be like in the light in my dreams, like moving in light. And I remember like when I was 4 or 5 years old, feeling like I was on another planet, looking in on this planet, looking for my crayons that I found out so I was like out of this world, and I was like sitting on another planet, and I could then see that my crayons were stuck behind the washing machine, you know, in my parents' house. And then it was kind of like back, and like my crayons were there, right, in this hidden place. But when I was like 8 years old, I had an open eyes vision where I was given instructions for my life. And, you know, with images, and it was during a power cut, and these friends of my parents were hippies, and my parents had gone abroad, and I was staying with them. And I asked Swamiji one time, you know, how come that happened to me when I was such a little kid? And he said, because when your parents went away, that was your last attachment. You got free of your attachments then.
Wow.
And so then everything else that happened was like part and parcel of that. I'd rejected you know, organized religion when I was a 13-year-old in a very, very strong way. And I always had this feeling that there's this infinite consciousness. There was some like power, Shakti, that was not ruling, but like running the world. but I couldn't call it God. I wouldn't use that word because I was very, very angry with the part of the upbringing that I'd had.
Yeah,
You know,
the organized religion.
yeah,
and
because
that
I
kind
was
of
in a
thing.
Catholic boarding school.
Wow.
You know, and there were a lot of things that I said, God couldn't have said that. You know, these can't be God's rules. And so I was like the rebellious one on that front,
Yeah.
you know. So I went like through university and started moving in more, you know, alternative kind of groups alongside the traditional paths like career and all that kind of stuff. But there came a day when I had come out of my career in investment banking and went to this meditation group. And in that meditation group, afterwards, they like went round and said, you know, what they experienced in meditation. And the extraordinary thing was that the person next to me said the same thing that I thought I just had a dream of. I thought I just wanted to sleep and had a dream. And she exactly described what I experienced. So I was starting thinking, what's this, you know? And then at the same time, having been born in the UK, I had that sense of shyness of, oh my God, what am I going to say? I was new in that place. They're all going to think that I'm just copying, right? But the guy didn't ask me anything. The guy who was running the meditation group, the Swami, he was a Russian Polish Jew. And he came across the room and he came and prostrated on the ground and touching my feet and said, I've been waiting for you. And I thought, you don't even know if I'm a man or a woman. So from there, I kind of like got a little bit freaked out about what this all was. But after spending a month near Mount Sinai and meditating, I realized that the answer to my question, who am I and what am I supposed to do, that guy could give me the answer, because I'd exhausted all the soul readers and all these people, you know, that help guide us on our journey.
Yeah.
And I thought, that guy knows who I am. So I went there. This particular day, I was like sitting in the car and thinking, who's going to tell me? Who am I? And it was like this blinding flash that guy said, he knows you. So I went there and I sat in meditation and I had this incredible experience that it was like light had burnt through me, and I felt in that moment that I was completely changed. My life changed that night. And I didn't have questions. And, you know, a few weeks later, I went to him and I said, you know, so what's my savor? What's my work? You know, because in the group there were people who were yoga teachers, psychologists, Ayurvedic doctors, this kind of stuff.
And were you still a banker at that time?
I'd already quit because I already knew that, you know, that wasn't my path. And when my family were getting like quite stressed about it, I said, I just know that God has a plan for me and I don't know what it is. And I've just got to wait. And like going to that meditation group was like the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Because from that moment, I knew that this is everything I'd been looking for in my whole life. Because you know how, you know, when I was working, there came a point that it was like I had everything in my hands. You know, this is in the 90s when working on the stock markets was considered like a really amazing
the coolest thing to do,
right?
Especially as a woman as well. I'm sure that people were like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, you know, and I had like really good like rankings, and I was like at the forefront of what we were doing, right?
Yeah, and working for Goldman Sachs as well, which is
Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Citibank, Salomon Brothers by then.
Wow.
So you know, it was like what was at that time considered a really great lifestyle. But I reached a point that it, like, everything was in my hands of what people want in the world. But inside, I was empty. It was like every mountain that I was climbing, I was trying to fill that space. And that space only got filled that day in meditation. For the first time, I felt complete in my life. And you know, I'd been, since a kid, striving for that. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I said, I'm going to go and study at Oxford University. And my first day at Oxford University, I was like, oh, you know, this isn't the thing that I was looking for. And the same thing, you know, in my career, for a while, it was like so new and exciting, and like living in Manhattan for a while. You know, it was a good time, you know, of the way things were then. But I also realized the emptiness. And I realized that money couldn't fulfill that. You know, I remember going to Gucci one day, and we'd been part of the Gucci IPO, so it's Tom Ford's time, right?
Yeah.
And I remember walking out of the store being really disappointed. There was nothing I wanted to buy. You know, so, you know, it was from that extreme to this extreme of not wanting anything anymore. And, you know, after being with them for a while, like a month or so, I said, you know, what's my saving? He said, well, what do you enjoy doing? And I sort of smiled and I said, well, you know, I love meditation. He said, got your answer yet? And I was like, oh, that's it. And so as I spent more time with them, I started learning more about yoga. Of course, I'd been to yoga classes before, but I hadn't, you know, I hadn't found my connection. You know, I hadn't found my tribe. You know, and I hadn't found that thing that completed me. I'd been to like some retreats and stuff like that. And the strange thing is that the last retreat I went to before I first went to these people, I actually told my friends that I wanted to leave, and I left, and I went to see the daughter of this guy.
Wow.
And when he first met me and, you know, touched my feet, he said, where have you been? I was like, what do you mean, where have I been? And he said, because, you know, I didn't understand the language of yoga and, you know, and of consciousness. And he said, so how did you get here? And I said, well, your daughter's one of my best friends. He said, what, you've been here all the time? And I was kind of like, my God, you're a really strange guy. I don't know what to do with what you're saying.
Oh my goodness.
And he like took hold of my hand. He said, you got, like looking in my eyes, and he said, you got to come. And I thought, my God, I'm never coming here again. But, you know, when that question was going round and round in my mind of who am I? And I'd been to the last person that I thought could answer this question was a soul reader. And she just slammed the door in my face and looking at me in like horror almost. And I looked at her like, oh my God, she looked so dark and everything. And she, you know, in those days, it was very hard for a healer to make money, so no one turns away a client, right? But she just slammed the door in my face, and I sat in the car crying like, who's going to tell me this answer? And it was just like this like burst of light. Oh, that guy said he knows me. And so I went back there and everything changed. And then I ended up going to like yoga classes. I started off going to classes at the Shivananda Center, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in London. And learning pranayama. And I had like, the first day I went there, I had this most incredible experience, like of a chakra that just from that moment on, I just knew that the connection between yoga and meditation was intertwined. I mean, meditation, of course, is one step of yoga, but I didn't know much then, right? But I was just in Sarvang Asana, and I was having this mind-blowing experience, right? Whether my eyes were open or my eyes were closed. So from that moment, I knew, okay, if you want more meditation, you want to do more yoga.
So the asana was a doorway for you into a deeper awareness of how the actual practice of moving the body could then help to focus the mind. Yeah, and with the pranayama as well, the ability to, through control of the breath, controlling the mind. And then I was just doing my mantra, and, you know, it was all very new thing for me, right? But it was kind of like just so completely out of the blue, like boom, that I just, from that moment on, friends, like, it's like you're addicted to this. And I was like, well, yeah, I am, because I've never found
anything that is more, because it was not just peace, but that deep sense of bliss, that Satchidanand, that unending sense of living, above the clouds, and that expansion and that light and that sense of awareness and sense of that everything is okay as it is, coming through that experience. So that took me into yoga philosophy, and then that took me into Sanskrit and, the Bhagavad Gita and and the Upanishads and all these kind of things. And just being able to experience the whole, like, picture of yoga. So, like, from Sanskrit, yujang samadho, meaning the word yoga means samadhi. And so if you look at the word samadhi means stable intellect. And so coming through the philosophy and the practice as well, and understanding that yoga ultimately is talking about stable wisdom. It's the science of stable wisdom. It's the science of absolute knowledge, that eternal knowledge that's truth, it's wisdom, it's and blissful. That's the real love, and being able to experience that flowing through you and having that guidance and being able to go beyond that should I or shouldn't I, which, like, really tortures the human mind. And just having that awareness of flowing with the energy and having the great teachers that I've been lucky to have. You've met Swami Yogananda now, but our guru is Brahmrishi Vishwatma Bhavraji. So Swami Yogananda, from his teenage times, was moving with Brahmrishi Vishwatma Bhavraji, and I was very lucky to be one of his last, as students who came to be able to live with him in India. And all the time, Swami Yogananda has been teaching me for like the last 23 years.
Wow.
So for me, they're one and the same. They're part and parcel of one energy, which is what you've been experiencing too.
Yeah, and even when I had the opportunity of going to Rishikesh and like being there and just feeling your energy, and then the first time that we met, I remember actually there was a time when I was looking at you, and you said that your guru was actually coming through you, and there was a beam of light that I could see from your third eye that was emanating. And this is, in Varanasi, my first time ever in India, and I was having a full-on experience where I'm visualizing something that I couldn't explain. And I remember at that time I was like, this woman is very special. And I remember you saying to me that your Guruji was actually speaking through you to speak to me. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what it is about the energy that is speaking through, this lineage of divine masters, and how does that happen? Like, what is the essence of that?
It's really very, very simple, because it's about each dissolving into that eternal consciousness, being absorbed in that, and yet being observed as a human being. So when you're inside and when you are completely absorbed in that and guided by that, that comes through you. So it's got nothing to do with me. It's all about my, you can say, love for my teachers, my, and it's not it's their gift that I wish to dissolve in that. Because, it's, desire's not the key. I mean, it's a great blessing of consciousness itself, because the wisdom is the essence of that itself, right? It's not something that I know or Swamiji knows, but it's something that is always in existence in every being. The Vedas actually say, Ashta Chakra, Naudwara, Devanam, Pur Ayodhya. So the Atara Veda, which is like so many thousand years of old that we can't even think about when it came. And it's a manifested knowledge as opposed to composed knowledge in the form of mantras. And mantra means mananatraititi mantra, that thing which protects you from the cogitations of the mind. And so this mantra in the Vedas tells that we consist of 8 chakras. So in the West you hear a lot about 7 chakras. So it's only missing out Lalana, which is on the palate. But, Brahma chakra, Sahasrara chakra, Agya chakra, third eye, and Vishuddha chakra, these Brahma chakra is what it's all about, right? And, when you talk about the heart in the Upanishads, this is the real heart. This is the heart that beats for the human body. But this is where manifestation begins. And this is like the hole, when you're born, there's like a little hole in the fontanelle, right?
Yeah, it's like the top of the Shushumnadi.
Exactly. And so that's where we come from, and that's where we go back through, ideally, right? So that's like the aim. And so the Vedas tells us that we've got like these 8 chakras, and the journeys through those 8 chakras. Then it goes on to tell you how you're going to figure it out, how to go. And it says, so there's 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, mouth, and 2 lower gates. You want to close them. And so in total we have 11 gates, one which is the tummy button, which is closed at birth, and then this one, right? So the aim is to go through this gate, this chakra. Then it says that, and so it's saying pur meaning body. And it says that our body is this dwelling place of all the devatas. And devatas in Sanskrit doesn't mean gods. That God is like a Christian word, actually. So devatas actually means those divine beings that give without taking anything in return. So like the sun, like the wind, like water, like earth. All these things are giving us without taking anything. And then you have all the divine beings like Krishna, Durga, Shiva. But all of these have like different aspects of consciousness. It's not like they're a statue, something. They are an energy, right? And all of these energies are in us. And then it says what the name of what this is. And it says the name is Ayodhya, which in Sanskrit means Na-yodhya, the place of no battles. So our real dwelling place is this peaceful place where there's no battles. And even the word in Sanskrit and Hindi for mankind is Purusha. And that is Purusheti iti Purusha, means that dwelling place where you can just be at rest. So you see that our real state of being is where we are state of rest, where we are beyond the duality of the mind of should I, shouldn't I like this, I like that, I don't like this. All these pairs of opposites, we're beyond that. And so when we're blessed enough to find a teacher who themselves is beyond that, then we have they bless us with the capacity to dissolve in that if we're ready to let go of our individual, not our individuality as such, because we're always going to have those skills, but those individual desires that tie us outside. Because there's 2 forms of gravity. There's one to the earth and one to the divine. Right?
I love that.
And ultimately, that's the real gravity. Because the earth's gravity is limited to a specific space, right?
Yeah.
But that gravity has no limitations whatsoever. And so if you think about it, even like on a scientific basis, like there's electrons, protons, and neutrons in this, in me. The only thing that's different between this and this is that consciousness. And so through the practices of yoga, and through the practices of mantra, we are able to wipe our slate clean so that we can uncover the light, because the light's always there. Light,
cleaning the lens.
Yeah, it's just like cleaning away the dust, cleaning away the boundaries, limitations. So, ultimately, that's what every human being is. That's what everything is. There's even a point of consciousness where when you become so attuned to your mantra, you can hear it in every sound. You can even experience it from every atom, like coming from the inanimate objects as well. But that's once you get really dissolved in it, and it becomes all-encompassing. And sometimes people get worried about letting go of themselves, and it's an irrational fear, really, because that's what we really are. And like Swamiji yesterday was talking to you about the permanent. Really, that's all we're seeking, right? But because what we have in the here and the now, we tend to get absorbed in it and blinkered, wanting to protect that, like a kid holding on to their parents before they know how to go out in the world, hiding behind their mother or their father, So really it's that refocusing our desires on what is permanent, what is eternal, what is divine, away from the limited. Because as long as we hold on to limited, we're going to be limited, right? And when we focus on something that's permanent, then we have the capacity to dissolve into that permanency, whilst at the same time existing in this temporary form. Right?
Wow.
So that's how I understand yoga. And that's how that works with Swamiji, and there's no limit of how many could dissolve into themselves, because you're not dissolving into Swamiji or into a being, you're dissolving into the divine, because Swamiji is, the most perfect expression of divinity in a body. That's my experience. And I remember that moment, that we were sitting on the roof and the sun was shining, and I was sitting on the corner of our ventilation system. And I remember I could feel Swamiji's face coming in and out of my face. And then I said to you, it was a very rare experience. That environment there, Kashi, Varanasi is said to be the only place that's on earth that's not on earth. Right?
Definitely a feeling. And I feel also because that's the space that a lot of people actually go to leave their bodies.
Yeah.
So essentially it's a realm in between realms, It's a space that allows that essence of the impermanence to be able to be released into the ether. And going there for my first time was so profound. And having the opportunity to go and to see the children and to hear Sanskrit spoken from such a pure place and really sung with a pure heart, it vibrated in a way that changed me. And everyone on that trip, to this day, my good friend Ryan, to this day, he teaches yoga because you looked at him and you said, you're going to become a great yoga teacher. And it literally occurred to him at that point that yoga is part of his path. And, he comes from a finance background and played golf at UCLA and had no real, he came on that retreat because I said that I would teach him how to do handstands. So, it's such a powerful place, Varanasi. And I really feel that there are epicenters in this world that are like that. A lot of them happen to be here in India that are just magnetized with that sense of spirituality that when you arrive there, you set foot on this space that changes you.
That's the real truth, you know. Even the real name of this country is Bharat, which means that which is joined by light, and light meaning that divine knowledge. So this whole, it's the whole foundation of this existence. Here is the foundation of world existence, but there's something very strong that connects it to here. And you know, as you say, Kashi, the word Kashi means that which is of light, in light. That's its ancient name. Varanasi is a much more modern name. And so the real meaning of Kashi is city of light. And another old name from the Vedic times is forest of bliss. And you know, the best special experience you had also was like really lifted up by all of those young kids that some of them are preteens, and a lot of them have been with us since they were preteens, doing these mantras, doing these yoga practices. You know, little kids doing an hour and a half of yoga practice every day at 4:30 in the morning. You yourself saw how early they were doing it, right?
Yeah, we came one day to actually join them in the practice in the sadhana, and I was like, this is incredible for one day. Yeah. Imagine every single day. I still vow to, at some point in time, to come there and just have a month with the children and just tap into that sadhana.
We'll love it, you know, because you really inspired those kids, because, you know, they saw a cool adult guy doing yoga in such a beautiful way with the essence inside of the meditation, and saw how you loved the Bhagavad Gita. And so for them, that was a really eye-opening thing. Yeah, they'd seen me as a foreigner as well, but you were a guy, you know, and so for them, that's like a role model for them. And all your friends that you've sent since, you know, they all like, it works both ways.
Yeah,
everybody's
come and done a whole entire, you know, little mini documentary, and also my great friend Cam came and did a little mini documentary, and Louie. And they also helped you to raise the money, the funds to be able to help to save the school and get the land. And I want to hear a little bit more about the Chandramauli Children's Trust and how that came to be, because ultimately, I mean, that's like a little haven, like a little gem, you know, that you have helped to cultivate there, with teaching the children the Vedas and, you know, bringing them off of the streets where they would normally be begging and, you know, asking for money and basically in slavery.
So, you know, the greatest things in some ways happen without planning. So I knew from when I was a little kid that I was going to make some center. But when I say it's not really I at all. You know, with Swamiji, we like made on paper a project, right? But what we were going to do, or what it was going to involve, I didn't know. But I just knew that, having had my education and career in the West, I knew that the thing that people were missing was the real essence of yoga. And, you know, and that ultimately meaning meditation and knowledge. And so, like, you can say my mission was that I knew that this had to come into people's lives. And so we started by founding Yoga Mission. And then we understood that we needed also something else, so that, you know, if you're dealing with education projects and litigation and these kind of things, that we would be able to like carry on. So no idea what we were going to do. Just there was on paper with the idea that the knowledge, the ancient wisdom of yoga had to come out. And it's not like there's lots of people doing this, but just in the way that it come from Guruji's tradition. And you know, my guru didn't even have a physical guru. His guru was Chandramauli, who is a form of Shiva.
Wow.
And he didn't know for a long time that his guru wasn't a physical being. And he was searching around the country looking for him. And there came a point of realization that he realized that he had manifested for him, but he wasn't a human being, right? So that's how the Chandramauli name came in honor of my guru's guru. And I'd been sent to Varanasi to study Sanskrit, and I realized that there were a lot of underprivileged kids. You know, underprivileged can be in lots of different ways. Below poverty line, special needs, maybe some, maybe not having education in the village that they were living in. Because this was 15 years ago or so. And there came a point that we bought a tiny piece of land near Vishwanath Mandir. And then a guy, Devatma Dubey, came and was studying in the university, same as me. And there were 3 of us sharing an apartment. And one day, not one day, I mean, it happened several times, but one day, these kids used to come and pull out clothes saying, "Can you teach us? Can you teach us?" And so one day we agreed, and we opened our rooms, and we were teaching in all of our rooms. It was 2 kids, and then it was 25 kids, and then it was 50 kids. Wow. And then it was 100 kids. And we were renting the apartment below us because we couldn't teach in our bedrooms anymore, so many kids, right? Yeah. And then Devama said, why don't we build on that piece of land? So we started building there, and at the same time, I was teaching Sanskrit grammar to 4 or 5 young kids who'd come from villages. And one of the things I realized was there was no continuity in their study, because one day one kid would be absent, another day another kid would be absent, and we weren't making much progress. And I walked out in the street one afternoon and saw the older brother of one of these kids, who was only 13-year-old, walking with a bucket of water. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm taking water to my room." I was like, "Why don't you have water in your room?" And he said, "Oh, we don't have access to water there." So we were bringing it from the hand pump. So I said, "Show me your room," which was just a 6-foot by 4-foot kind of space where these 3 young boys were living. So I asked him, how do you pay for it? And he said, "Well, I go and do pujas for people." So I said, "So when do you go to school?" And he said, "Well, I go and do the exams at the end of the year." And so I said, "Okay, I've got a spare room. You 3 come and stay in our spare room. But the deal is you go to school every day." So they went to school every day. He came back with 42% at the end of that year. So I thought, it's not enough that they just go to school every day. I'm going to need to, because he obviously hadn't been to school for a long time, right? Yeah. So we started teaching them. And so when we were building the new building at that time, so I said, why don't we get some Gurukul kids, Sanskrit kids, open our hall and allow children to live there. And that's how it all started. It wasn't like we sat down and made a plan. It was kind of just an evolutionary process. And I realized that through my own practices, the combination of the physical, subtle, and causal practice of yoga, combined with the study of Sanskrit and that connection with that divine language, was so magical. I wanted more people to have that opportunity. Yeah. And that out of that came the Yoga Mission and International Chandramauli Charitable Trust, which is what you see now. And now it's going into its next stage where I have this feeling of making this project for the next 500 years, where this knowledge is, the knowledge is eternal, but having a place where we lay foundations for it to carry on generation to generation with these children passing it on. And so a lot of your friend Emily also came.
Yeah.
She helped with doing the promotion for it and doing the GoFundMe. And a lot of your friends helped with the funding. So like ultimately it's going to cost us like, just to buy the land is like around, $550,000. India's it's not cheap. And together with your friends, we've got up to around $140,000 now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel that we can get to the rest of it. This is a divine year, 2023. And I really feel that we can definitely put our heads together and most importantly, put our hearts together and get the right people to be able to steward this land. Because there's a lot of really important projects that need to actually come into fruition. And this, I feel, is one of them because it gives us the opportunity to be able to empower children with this opportunity to learn and also empower more stewards, people like myself who are, whether we be in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, whatever it is, to be able to actually continue learning this ancient wisdom that comes from a lineage of masters. And that I feel is powerful.
Which is ultimately in you already, but just needs to come out.
Yeah, it needs to be polished. I'm still polishing my lens, and I feel like having teachers like yourself and having the opportunity to come to India and learn. There's so many yogis out there who have not yet been to India to have the real embodiment of this wisdom, or who have not had an actual guru mantra given to them so that they can actually learn about, how to use the malas that they wear around their necks. It's like these are such important practices that really help to instill a different level of embodiment in one's sadhana, in one's practice of becoming the truest version of yourself.
That is what, at the end of the day, all it's about. Becoming yourself, becoming your real self, knowing what you really are, and realizing that we're just this unity and diversity, that we are ultimately, we are just pure love, pure light. That's all it is. When you say like teacher, I'm not the teacher. I'm just, I'm blessed to have great teachers, and I just pass on what I can understand. That's all we can do. And becoming that Ayodhya, that place of peace, that place of battle within, that's what everybody wants in the world. No one does an action seeking to get themselves into trouble or to stress. Everything that any human being seeks to do or accomplish is always with the aim of peace and happiness. That's the bottom line. Just people don't know how to get it. And these tools enable us to connect to it in a permanent way, freeing ourselves, And it's so simple. There's nothing complicated about it.
Well, that's the beauty of it, and that's why, having the space, I feel, is so important, because then we can guide the way in a more empowering way.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're working towards, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to do it with you. And I have just a few little questions more to share with our Yoga Revealed listeners. And one that I would love to hear from you is, how do you define yoga?
It's very simple. Yujang Samado, that stable wisdom, that stable intellect. Ultimately, that combined with the other definition in Sanskrit of Yujir Yogi, which means that unifying, dissolving in that oneness of that ultimate consciousness. So having the stable intellect and that joining to our real selves, that unlimited self, that eternal Satchidananda, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, which is truth, eternal, wisdom and that love. And that for me is yoga. That for me is the purpose of life, being free of the delusion, seeing things as they are. And one step towards that is that colorless crystal of the intellect.
That's beautiful. And I wanted to also ask you for our, wonderful yogis out there who perhaps are feeling down on themselves or feeling, a little discouraged in their practice and their sadhana, and they haven't felt like the courage or perhaps the perseverance to keep on a daily regimen of their practice. What would be 3 practices that you can give them to help on their path to becoming more resilient and becoming even more clear in their intellect?
Well, first, the best thing that we can do is to choose a particular time and place, because in that particular place, the energy builds up there and helps support us to go through those difficult times. So like, even if we're feeling really, really down or even very sick, if we just go to that place at that time, there will come a moment that it will happen by itself. And, the definition of an asana is sthira sukham asanam. So finding that posture that is really comfortable for you so that you can stay in it for time. And sometimes that means doing a lot of different postures to help you get to that one. Ideally, a sitting posture like Padmasana or Sukhasana, something that would be able to keep you stable. Because when we say sthira sukham asana, we're not just talking about the stability of the body, but we're also talking about the stability of the mind. And to help the stability of the mind, pranayama. Because thought and breath are twins.
Oh, I love that. Thought and breath are twins.
That's what hatha means, that hum and tum, the right nostril, the left nostril, the sun, the moon, the hot, the cold, the rajaguna, the tamaguna. When these 2 breaths become balanced, that's when we go inside. And so that happens when, the breath has become under control. And so then the mind comes under control. So this is one of my favorite teachings from my guru, is thought and breath are twins. And I'm going to sneak in one extra thing, which is mantra.
Mantra.
A bonus 4th. So adding mantra in, I think, is the key. And there will come a time, and if you just, it's a scientific process, and if you just keep going with it, there's going to come a point in time that suddenly that veil of illusion will dissolve at the most unexpected moment. So just having the resilience to keep on going, having the faith that there is something on the other side of the practice. And yoga is the aim, but it's also the means as well. So if we can pick that particular time and place, build up our energy there, in a particular posture, preferably like a sitting posture, where we can then do some pranayama to get to that point where our thought comes under control, and support it with mantra. And if you don't have guru mantra, you can use Om. Because Om is the ultimate uplifting sound. It goes, I don't know if you've analyzed Om as a linguistic sound. Om consists of U, and Ma. So is here. So if you put your hand here and go can you feel it striking on your throat?
Yeah.
And then U, it's here. And then Ma is So you can feel that striking up, depending on how blocked your nasal passages are. It's in the physical body, it's a naturally uplifting sound, which is even expressed in the Samaveda. It's such an ancient wisdom. And so that's in the physical body. And then in the subtle body, it's, going from the Muladhara chakra to the Anahat. And, people talk a lot about the Anahat being the heart chakra. But anahat means unstruck sound, where you hear that sound within, right? And then the U is from here to the Agya chakra, the third eye, and that is from the Agya chakra to the Brahma chakra. So whether you're looking at the physical body, the subtle body, or the causal body, Om is this divine gift that naturally uplifts us. So those things combined, the place, the posture, the pranayama, and the mantra. These are, I think, these are guaranteed to change anybody's life. It's such a simple process. Pranam.
Absolute gratitude for your wisdom, absolute gratitude for your grace. Thank you so much for blessing us with this wisdom. The Yoga Revealed listeners are brighter and lighter for this opportunity to hear your words and to be absolutely uplifted by the vibration of your being today, Lucy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pranam. I bow to the divine in you.
Pranam.
It's a real blessing to be with you and know you and share experience with you.
Yes, indeed. And here we are again. Many, many, many more experiences to come. And for our listeners who want to get in contact with you or have the opportunity to come and learn from you, what is the best way to find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, by my name, Lucy Guest. But you can also find us on our websites, yogamission.uk. So I pick up all the emails and all the social media. So probably that's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome. Well, you too can come on a yoga mission with Lucy. Many blessings.